If you want to be a great leader, create a psychologically safe environment for your team to express themselves and feel tangible. They can take risk.
Welcome everyone to the Sports Business Podcast. I'm so excited today. Today I have a former NFL player who's done some great things, Marques Ogden. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thanks, Tanner. How you doing today, man?
Good. So Marques, you're a keynote speaker and executive coach right now, and you were an old lineman of the NFL. You were just telling me before we started recording, you're 375 pounds, drafted in 2003, and you played a few years, 6 years, I think, with Baltimore, Tennessee, and some other teams as well. And then you've transitioned to do some really, really great stuff. I can't wait to dive into all those things today.
Tanner, I'm excited to be here and share with your audience my story to help inspire them to achieve greatness.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of people that are going to be watching, listening to the episode when it's out, that I think in today's time can absolutely benefit from your story. So to kick it off, what are you doing today? What's keeping you busy?
So today, Tanvir, I'm a keynote speaker, national, international, executive coach, best-selling author, consultant, and I'm a brand ambassador. And I'm actually also a business owner in a couple different businesses that align with our brand, like a company called Grind Oral Care, a company called Athlete Foundry, another company called Zipstream, that really do align with our brand and help us to continue to share our mission and mantra of inspiring people to achieve greatness no matter what they do with their life.
Wow. That is a lot of stuff. How are you finding time, Marques? Like that is people having tough time doing one job. You got like 6 things on the go. How are you doing all this stuff?
So Tanvir, it's the big thing. Keynote speaking is you do a job for an hour if it's virtual. You have to sometimes fly for a day, 2 max to go to a destination, do a talk, engage your audience, hang out with them, get to know them, and you go home. And consulting is the same thing. I work from home. I do sometimes go to my clients, corporate offices to do some different types of deep dive and all that kind of stuff. Like, for example, one of my consulting clients now is the number 1 fastest growing tomato brand in the US, 3 times the closest competitor. And when I started working with them, they were about 20% of the US's ketchup. And today they are 35% of our nation's ketchup. And they are only number 2, they are behind Hunt's. So again, my client went from about 20% of our nation's ketchup to 35%. And again, they're number 2 in our country, only behind Hunt's, with ketchup being used both on their, what they call private label, where someone will buy their ketchup and put their own logo on it. And then on the branded side, when the people buy their ketchup, they actually see my client's brand and logo. So very exciting times for my client, which was so exciting part of their journey. And then when it comes to coaching, I coach people, weekly, half an hour. So I'm very strategic. And again, as an athlete, Tanvir, as being an athlete yourself in college up in Canada, when you struggle with life after the game, it's because I feel you don't have a structure, time management. You don't have things to do to keep yourself moving. So like today, I had my first coaching call with one of my clients at 8:00, and I won't get done today until probably 5 p.m., coaching clients, sales calls, your podcast, keeping busy and meeting new people, posting on social media. But if you don't do that, Tanvir, I feel what happens is you start to just kind of get a little bit lax on your day and moving in the right direction. And I tell you all the time, one of our worst enemies as people is having too much time on our hands and nothing to do with that time, unless we're on vacation and you've earned the right to go and have leisure and relax. Other than that, you should be inspired and moving towards something. And I feel structure and keeping a good schedule can help you do that.
That's amazing. You touched on such great points, Marques, and I want to dive into all of them. And I have a belief that all the stuff you're telling me right now that you're doing in your business, you've learned or were inspired from sports, which was football. So let's go back and walk me through, how did you start playing football when you were a kid? And what was the journey like to NCAA and the NFL?
I started playing football when I was when I was young. I played in some exhibition games, things like that. They didn't have it where no matter what your size was, you could play different leagues. Pop Warner was always a weighted league. And I went to a middle school that didn't have any football. It had basketball, but not football. So I didn't start playing football until my freshman year of high school. And then I ended up being on varsity as a junior, 2-year starter. I really enjoyed it. We played in a very, very strong league, the WCAC. So schools you might have heard of, like DeMatha and Carroll and Gonzaga and St. John. I'm a St. John's grad. And it's absolutely interesting that the fact of the matter is that you have to really push yourself in that right direction to achieve a high level of success. And it's very interesting. So back at St. John's, I learned that. Like, I remember, Tanvir, from my entire class, right? My entire class of all the schools in WCAC, 7 of us went to the NFL. 7. Yes. I went to the Ravens. A guy went to the Bears. I went to Notre Dame for college. Had a guy who went to Alabama as a fullback, went to the Ravens. Had a guy who was a running back, went to Villanova, played for the Eagles. Had another guy who was a tight end with the Chapel Hill, went to the Saints. So that's the kind of football prowess I was dealing with even in high school. I got 1 scholarship offer to college, Tanvir. That's it. Howard. That's it. My transcripts were messed up. People thought I was a senior when I was a junior. And so people thought I was a junior. I was really a senior. So a lot of schools started offering me when I was at Howard, but I already got there. I enjoyed it. I liked the setup. I redshirted as a freshman for Howard, and I ended up becoming a 4-year starter. And interesting, Tanvir, I was like, oh, yeah, I'll go to college. Yeah, when you only get 1 scholarship offer, you're like, oh, if I get on the field in year 3 or 4, I'm happy with that, because, you don't think you're going to be a starter, you're going to get 1 offer. And becoming a 4-year starter at Howard. And then I remember right before my last year, so after my junior season, I started seeing my name in like NFL draft books and all this stuff. I was like, wow, draft books. Like, I didn't know this was possible. So I called my brother, Jonathan Ogden, who's a Hall of Fame left tackle for the Ravens. And he said, Marques, your name's in the books. Give it your all. You got 1 final year to go. Give it your all. Train, work hard, do it all. And that's what I did. And luckily, by the grace of God, we got a strength coach right before my last year. So I had him for my entire last year, plus leading up to the draft. I went to the Hula Bowl, Tanvir, had a very successful Hula Bowl against guys from Florida State, Texas, Rice. Matter of fact, my quarterback that I blocked for was Cliff Kingsbury, head coach of the Arizona Cardinals now. My coach was Mac Brown, who was at Texas at the time. He's now back at Chapel Hill coaching today, where he coached in the 80s. And that was my coach in the Hula Bowl. And it was great, man. I had a great experience. A lot of guys were drafted from that game. And I went out there and showed myself against some of the best in college football that year. And Tanvir, I was the first, and I'm still today the only offensive lineman ever drafted from Howard University. The first and only still to date is an O-lineman to be drafted from Howard University NFL to the Jacksonville Jaguars 2003, to Jack Del Rio, who's now the defensive coordinator for the Washington football team.
Wow. Yeah, you said something interesting, Marques. You said you got a strength and conditioning coach in your final year. So you never had a strength conditioning program or a coach in university in the NCAA?
Nope, not to my last year.
I thought every school has
now today. Back then we didn't. Now all the 1As had them. All the big schools had them, but Howard, we didn't have one. And then my last year, we had a new coach, head coach Rayford Petty, who I knew because he was our defensive coordinator my true freshman and my redshirt freshman season. He got the head coaching job. Then they go with my old coach, Steve Wilson. And the first thing Coach Petty went and got, other than his OC and DC, he went and got a strength coach, Keith Camaforo, who's still my friend to this day. And Keith was my strength coach, and he worked at Towson for a while. He worked at Kentucky for a while, and he's exactly what I needed to get myself in a position to achieve massive success playing football by getting me the strength that I needed and the conditioning that I needed to excel at the highest level possible at that time.
How important was being bought in and being committed? Because a lot of kids today have all of these great things. They have schools have strength conditioning programs. They have all these amazing research-backed scientific nutritional plans. But how important is it to being bought in like you were in your final year? You got to go all out. Did that make a big difference for you?
For me, it was everything, because I needed guidance, Tanvir, on how to actually train myself, what to eat, what not to eat. Now, I'll be very honest with you, I ate a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have ate, but I was coming out of college light. I couldn't keep weight on, so I had to eat a ton of calories because I could barely tip the scale at 300 pounds because we were working so hard with our conditioning. Now, I was able to, on my pro day, I was like measuring 6'5" 3/4, and I was at like 305 pounds, and I ran a 4.85 in my 40, which was awesome. But again, I had to eat a lot of like an excessive amount of calories because no matter what I ate, Coach K was a master of burning it off because, I mean, I worked, Tanvir, like I've never worked before to get in shape for that, for my pro day, for my hula bowl, to give myself the best chance to get drafted in the National Football League.
So when you went to the NFL, Marques, how was that first year? How was the journey from just a learning standpoint and really getting adjusted to the professional ball? Because it is very different from what I've heard from college.
The speed of the game, Tanvir, is something like you've never imagined. I've never seen such large people. Like with the Jaguars, we had guys like Marcus Stroud, who was 6'6", 310, Big John Henderson, 6'7", 340. We had guys like Hugh Douglas, who's near the end of his career, but still a force. We had some amazing, guys like Donovan Darius, who's a 220-pound strong safety who would bring the wood into the box. Aiken Ayadele, who was like a 4'4" outside linebacker DN that gave me all kinds of hell my first year because I hadn't had anybody that was 230 with that speed and that ability to have great leverage I would ever win against. So that first year is a real learning curve to adjust to the speed of the game, the strength, and then on top of that, the conditioning of the athletes is such a crazy thing. And when I got there and saw it, and I really had to work hard and adjust myself to the level of the game, it pushed me out of my comfort zone, which was what I needed, but thank God it did, because that allowed me to have almost a 6-year career when a lot of guys who were coming from like some of the big schools didn't make it because they were relying, Tanvir, on their big past accomplishments in the NFL. They don't care if you're all SEC, all American. That's college. This is no longer college. This is time to really make your mark in this sport, in this game.
Yeah, that stuff doesn't matter. What you've done before. It's 0-0, right?
What happens, Tanvir, is that's the past. No one cares about the past in the locker room. All they want to know is how can you help them win today? That's all they care about.
So what did this teach you, Marques? And, let's go forward 4 or 5 years. Now you're playing in the NFL. You've learned, you had a massive learning curve. That's one big learning, that anytime you start something, it's always, you got to be committed. You have to make sure that you are putting in the work. As you went through NFL, your 6 years, what did you learn that you then took away from football and started applying to your life and your business?
So I learned the art of discipline. One of the speakers who I'm sure you'll know, Jim Rohn, has a saying: discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishments. And I learned how to be disciplined. And unfortunately, in my construction company that I started when I left the NFL, I built a massive business, but I lost discipline. I lost respect for human beings that were my employees. I became an arrogant boss, not a really good, solid not a good, solid servant leader.
Wow.
And when I developed that mindset, Tanvir, that's when my best employees started to leave the organization. And then 6 months later, I filed a complete Chapter 7 bankruptcy, lost my home, lost my cars, lost all my money. I basically moved to Raleigh with $400 to my name, Tanvir, and that's it.
So
I lost that discipline.
You went to the NFL. So Marques, you went to the NFL, you made a bunch of money, you started a business, you did really, really well. And then what you're telling me is that you literally lost everything you ever had, including
everything.
Your house.
Everything.
Wow.
House, both cars repossessed in the same day when I got down to Raleigh. I was a millionaire in April 2012, Tanvir. April 2013, $400 in the account, a week away from being homeless, and literally had lost everything I had worked so hard to achieve from football and my construction company.
And you're telling me that this happened to you because you lost discipline and you were not treating people as your main, drivers of your business. That's what it is. Wow.
So I tell about, there's motivation and there's inspiration. Motivation is when you do something for external forces and or external gain, money, fame, notoriety. Inspiration is when you do something for the long haul and you want to make a real impact. Google has 5 characteristics of a successful culture. One of those 5 is impact, where people feel what they are doing is making a positive change in the world. And that's what I do now as a speaker. For 2.5 years, Tanvir, I'll say one more time, 2.5 years, not one paid speaking job, not one. Got my first paid speaking job in April 2016. I started speaking, Tanvir, in September 2013. Bunch of free jobs, but while I was doing the free jobs, Tanvir, I was a custodian, making $8.25 an hour on the graveyard shift, 10 p.m. till 5 a.m. And that's when I had my aha pivotal moment. When I woke up, when somebody's trash was on me, their rotten banana peels, spoiled milk, horrible protruding smelling meat. I was throwing the garbage out on my shift about 4:30 in the morning. It was near the end of my shift. I didn't see a rip on the front side of the bag, Tanvir. Went to throw the trash into the trash. All that trash came right back on me because the rip in the bag, and when I threw it from the force, everything just came right back on me because of that rip in the bag. And literally, I picked up all the trash, picked up all the stuff I had. I sat down the curb with my head in my hands. I started to cry. And I said, at that point, man, like my wife had this, used Altima. I was driving a mid-1990 green F-150 Hornet that had a seat missing. It had no air conditioning. It had no CD or player, no radio. It was busted all up, dirty bed in the back of the truck. And literally, I was just making enough money to get by, barely get by. And some months I was even in the red. And I said, what was missing, man, was the accountability factor, the ownership. I didn't take any ownership of my life. When it comes to creating a successful culture to win in life, two aspects that you must have: commitment and accountability. And both of those were missing from my life at that time. And that's when I realized, Tanvir, I put myself on that corner. Doing that extra work for the client, when I spent about almost $3 million of my money without a signed change order, without the right paperwork, I put myself in a position to fail. And I trusted a client that I should not have, and I went bankrupt. My fault, nobody else's. So April 2013 to September 2013, my life was living hell. I call it sleepless nights. That's what my first book is called, Sleepless Nights. I didn't sleep much, no accountability. I was a big drinker of Miller Lights. I was just a real mess because I was still blaming other people, Tanvir. Then I finally got, I had that spoiled milk moment. Then I got my life back on track. Realized it was my fault, nobody else's. And then once I got myself in that position, I said, okay, we got to rebuild your life. And that's what I did. I worked all these different jobs, janitor, custodian for 6 months. I was a birthday clown at birthday parties. I did one-on-one coaching. I did 7-on-7 leagues, and I kept speaking for free. And I got my first paid job 30 months after I started. And then after that, Tanvir, it'll be 5 years next month since I got my first paid job. In the last 5 years, I've worked for 19 Fortune 500 companies as a speaker. Of the 19, Tanvir, 12 are Fortune 100. AXA Equitable, Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch, Bank of America, New York Life Insurance, MetLife Insurance, Liberty Mutual Insurance, Cisco, Siemens, Goldman Sachs, and I've got and then I've got the Home Depot company. Like those are my clients. A few of my clients I've worked for in the last 5 years.
How first of all, this is unbelievable. It's like what you see in the movies, right? So hats off to you for turning it around. I mean, this is unbelievable. What happened that day, Marques? What made you realize that this is an ownership factor? Because you had it inside of you, right? It's not that you had to learn something new. It was inside of you. What changed that day when you were covered in trash that made you say, I gotta stop and I gotta turn my life around? What was that?
When somebody's trash is on your body, that's a rock bottom moment. And without that moment, it's kind of like Will Smith in The Pursuit of Happiness, where he's in the bathroom with his son, sleeping on the floor. Got the door closed, trying to cover his son's ears and try to have him go to sleep while he's trying to keep people out of the bathroom just to get a nice rest. When I had that moment, I realized that everything in my life for the last 5 years was really me valuing money more than people. And I swore to myself, if I could ever get myself in a position where I could get myself on my own 2 feet, people can actually want to hear what I have to say, I would never, ever forget the cardinal rule. People are always number one in life. I don't care how much money you have, how much money you think you're going to have. Everything in our world runs from people doing it. And that was the moment I said, Marques, you lost sight. Again, you lost sight of what matters and you lost discipline. And once I lost discipline, Tanvir, life from there was just a living hell. And it never got back on track for me between, let's see. So I would say in like the spring of 2011, after I won a big award, no. Let's say winter of 2010, I won a big award for the state of Maryland for being a minority contractor of the year. And then basically right there in winter of 2010, my attitude started to change. I started to think I was the best thing walking. I started thinking everything I said was right. I could do no wrong. And then it just seeped into the pores and the foundation of my people. And then basically by 2012, in that beginning of the year, January, February, it became a culture of toxic, unhealthy, unsafe, really, environment from a psychological perspective. And then when my best employee left the company in 2012 in the summer, it was just a matter of time. And then 6 months later, bam, everything broke. But basically, it all started with me. So basically, between the winter of 2010 and September 2013, so I had my spoiled milk moment, my life was all about the material things, money, fame, cars, this, that. When I had that moment in 2013, my life changed forever. And I will never, ever go back to what I was between, Yeah, between December 2010 and January and September 2013. That'll never happen again.
Yeah. What would you tell someone today, Marcus, who's realized, right, that whatever they were doing was wrong and they are trying to come out of the rock bottom, the hole that you came out of? What would you tell someone? What should they be really focusing on? And really not doing negative self-talk, because it's very hard to get down on yourself, especially if you make a bad play. And this
Right.
was a big one.
Right. So I'll tell people, Tanvir, is focus on 3 strengths, 3 things you do well, and start there. After my spoiled milk moment in September 2013, I came home to my broken down, flimsy desk, my chair, my office chair that had 3 rollers at the bottom. One was missing, but I was so broke. We were so poor, we couldn't even try to go buy another chair. We just had to deal with it. And I wrote down my 3 biggest strengths. I was a good communicator. I was good with people. And I wanted to help people through storytelling, especially retired NFL athletes, so they didn't make the same mistakes I did. Wow. And I came home and I wrote those 3 things down, and I computed in my head, I'm going to be a speaker. And that's what I did. Now, for 2.5 years trying to do it, I went about it the wrong way. I was desperate. If I ever got somebody on the phone, I was trying to close them right then and there. And again, I kept valuing money. But when I got my first job in April 2016, I got to understand how to give people what they needed, how to value them. So I was never ego-driven, but I was trying to, because I was desperate, Tanvir. I had no money. I had no traction. I was just very, very forward and aggressive trying to close business between September 2013 and April 2016. That's why I got no paid jobs. Once I learned the business, once I learned how to give more value than trying to just be a cheap car salesman, that's when things for me got a lot better. And so what I would tell people who are in that rock bottom moment, figure out, go to a quiet place, sit down. If it's your home, if it's a coffee shop, if it's outside, doesn't matter where it is. Sit down, write down your 3 biggest strengths. Figure out what you do best. And then wherever you feel those 3 strengths are, start to build your confidence from there and start moving in the right direction.
Oh, I mean, that is so simple, but it's the simple stuff that's hard to do, right?
Yep.
And you got to stay committed.
Yep.
Wow. So Marcus, I mean, this is really eye-opening for me as well, because I mean, I've seen people, go from NFL. I've heard stories, somebody lost everything they had, but
Sure.
The way you hit the rock bottom and the way you came back up, I think it's of tremendous respect. I have a question for you that now relates to business. So then you built your business back up and you really went hard. And right now you're doing a lot of great things, and you are valuing people. You're not driven by money, and you can tell, right, just from your success. What can you tell people that are in business right now, executives that you're coaching people right now, leaders, young leaders, aspiring leaders? What should they be focusing on today to help them become great leaders in the future? What are some of those key skills?
They need to focus on servant leadership, and you need to focus on creating a psychologically safe environment for their employees to express themselves. 2 of the largest companies in the world, Google and Apple, both rank psychological safety as the #1 component, or i.e. characteristic, to build a sustainable, profitable business enterprise. But a lot of people talk about it, but don't do it. If you want to be a great leader, create a psychologically safe environment for your team to express themselves and feel, Tanvir, they can take risk, calculated risk, to grow themselves and the company.
Yeah,
that's what they need to do.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because unless you can take risks, you're not going to make big swings. And unless you take big swings, you're not going to find the next thing that's really going to put you on the podium. And it all starts with...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, Steve Jobs said it best, Tanvir. His hardest job at Apple, while he was there and while he was alive, was to create a psychologically safe environment for his employees to express themselves. It sounds so easy, but you know what is the number one killer, Tanvir, of a psychologically safe environment?
What is
Ego.
it? Wow.
Ego. People feel, Tanvir, that they are too good or too proud or too pride-filled to take advice and hear someone when they're trying to help. So ego gets in the way a lot of psychologically safe environments.
What do you tell someone that at a business, right? And I know people exactly the ones you're describing. I've dealt with them. We all have. What do you tell someone who is doing this exact same stuff, who is driven by ego, and you know that this is going to be detrimental to the business? How do they fix themselves? Because I don't think they realize this stuff is bad for you.
You know what, Tanvir? Because I had failed miserably from a really big ego that wouldn't fit into the Empire State Building, I lean on that and I tell them, if you want to succeed, drop your ego. If you want to struggle, have problems, have a staff that is not loyal to you, not committed to you, not going to achieve results at the highest level, keep your ego exactly like I did between the winter of 2010 and going into that part of 2013 when I lost my business. Keep the same ego I did, and you can end up exactly like me. Broke, almost homeless, home foreclosed on, both cars repossessed, no money, no friends, and having to start over from the ground bottom zero. Your choice.
That's so powerful in itself. And I think everybody listening and watching, I think if you are currently going through problems, I think it's very important for us, and myself included, take a look at ourselves in the mirror and say, am I driven by ego? Am I valuing the wrong things in life? Because a lot of times, until you really look at yourself, you're not going to realize that, it is me. It is an ownership issue, because many times we love to deflect blame, but it's always about ownership. So,
Tanvir, I have a saying that I tell my coaching clients. It's the inside to outside theory. Look at yourself first and others second. And I've had a lot of companies grow massively when it comes to more revenue, more profitable revenue, better net profit, cutting expenses, to really start making vast jumps in their business financially and getting huge ROIs from hiring me by telling them the inside to outside theory. Look at yourself first, and you're going to create the type of culture, the procedures and systems that you want people to follow. But if you're not going to take ownership, goes back to that chart we talked about, Tanvir. If you don't have, so it's 5 modules to build a successful culture to help you get to the final step. Trust, conflict resolution, commitment, accountability equals results. If you want to get to have results in any business, you must check all the boxes. Build trust with people, conflict resolution in a healthy manner. Everybody's committed to the goals. Take accountability no matter what. That will drive you towards results. I coach a lot of people, speakers that want to grow their business, entrepreneurs that want to grow their bottom line. Again, I helped one of my clients get almost 15% growth market share in the ketchup industry.
Wow.
They are the fastest growing tomato brand, 3 times the closest competitor. I've helped one of my big mortgage companies, helped him go increase his net profit by almost 13 to 15% in the last year. Had one of my clients that's a real estate investor, his portfolio grew by 40% by hiring me. 40%.
You know what's crazy?
That was his own way.
Marcus, as you're telling me this, the crazy part is you're not even talking about one industry. You're going from ketchup to real estate to speaking. It doesn't matter what industry it is.
Doesn't matter.
That's crazy.
People need to understand business is business, right? I know a ton about real estate and construction. I was in it. I don't know a ton about tomatoes, but I know how to build business, right? I know what matters. And that's what it is. People need to understand You have to have a business structure in place. I don't care if you sell ice cream, tomatoes. I don't care if you sell technology. It doesn't matter. If you don't have a culture where people can feel they can work and grow together, it doesn't matter what you sell. It won't work. But if you bring these systems into any business, it will work. I'm going to help people build 40% growth in your portfolio. The fastest growing tomato brand, 3 times the closest competitor, helping people get 13 to 15% improving on their net profit and their revenue in the mortgage industry. These are real clients. These are real numbers. And I've worked hard, and so has our team, to serve people, helping people who have never got paid speaking jobs get paid speaking jobs in less than a month. Again, these are things that you must build in a business. If you don't have a structure of a business, Tanvir, it won't work.
Wow. Well, I think this has been a great episode, Marques. It's very inspiring for me to just hear you. So I'm sure everybody, when we release this episode and watching, listening, I think there's going to be a lot of value in this. The only last question I have for you is this is for the student athletes. So a lot of student athletes with COVID had their years disrupted, Marques. So what would be your advice to athletes that are either transitioning from university to corporate or even at the pro level? How can they make that transition more applicable to themselves in today's uncertain environment?
If you're going corporate, know what industry you're going into and what things that you do as an athlete that excel that you can bring to your next job, bring those same traits. As an athlete going from college to pro, bring the things you did best to the table, to that field. In many camp OTAs, which you need to improve on with your coaches, training coaches, and work on that before training camp starts, and get out there and get after it. The vets are going to respect you. You can bring it's natural, but don't let your opponents see it. If they see it, they're going to come out, keep going. But don't let anybody see your.
Awesome. Well, hey, Marques, where can everyone watching and listening to you find you, learn more about your business, and get in touch with you?
They can go to our website, www.marques, M-A-R-Q-U-E-S, Ogden, O-G-D-E-N.com. Shoot us an email, connect with us, chat with us. And here's my personal email, Marques_Ogden@yahoo.com. Connect with us, get up with us. We're all about discussions to help you and your business grow, help you create more systems, more structure, help you with culture, help you improve overall percentages in your business, more revenue, to help you sustain no matter what times we're in at this time.
Awesome. Well, hey, Marques, thank you so much. What a great story. And thank you so much for sharing that. All the best in your business in 2021.
Thanks a lot, Tanvir. Have a great day, man.
Team, remember to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. And visit tanvirvangu.com for a ton of free content and exercises.